George Colvin Othello Roberts, also known as Cooley and Uncle George of Wharf St. John, who resided at Frequenty St. George and in the United Kingdom, passed away on Thursday, July 7, 2022 in the UK at the age of 67. He was the husband of Vida Roberts, father of Jihad, Junita, Junisha, Kimon Roberts and Shane White, son of Miriam Bedeau of Springs, grandfather of Jared, Jasmine and Jumail Roberts, brother of Julia Moore, Elizabeth Bedeau, Clara Bernard, Sandra and Ruggles Ferguson, uncle of Jalil, Keenaz, Khadija, Kadra, Kendra, Amara and Keziah Moore, Lois, Sheena and Kish Welch, Jonathan and Ethana Bedeau, Naji and Engels Ferguson, son-in-law of Dorcas Mason, brother-in-law of many including Tamara Ferguson, Anthony Bernard, Gladys Lewis, Agnes Mason, Michael Mason and Kenneth Moore, father-in-law of Rachel Roberts, cousin of Beverly Houston, Debbie Cord, Tara Grimberg, Donna and Richard Thomas, Yolan Pariag, Yvonne Snag, Irva Bernadine, Nesta and Eddie Augustine, and Joan Glean, nephew of many including Carlisle Lewis, Nelia Lufaro, Myrtle Thomas, and Julian Noel. Many relatives and friends including Bentley Lessie, John and Val Pradom, Todd and Richard, the boys by Bigger Shop Frequenty, the Lewis, Jeffrey, Bedeau, Pariag, Ferguson, Mason, Duncan, Ray, MacPhail and Nelson families, and friends of Frequenty, the Limes, the staff of Gem and Kalinago Beach Resorts, and Club Fantasia. The funeral of the late George Colvin Othello Roberts of Wharf St. John, who resided at Frequenty St. George and in the United Kingdom, will take place on Thursday, November 3rd at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Wharf Anglican Church, and entombment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Sybil Dassey Edgar, née Tyson, also known as Dassey, of Paradise St. Andrew, member of the Charismatic Revival Movement of Grenada, the Grenville and Paradise Catholic Prayer, and the Intercessors Prayer Group, the Legion of Mary and St. Vincent de Paul Society, passed away on Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, at the age of 80. She was the mother of Raymond Tyson, Valia Tyson Corion, Celia, Sherma, Edwin and Devon Tyson, and Charmaine Tyson Augustine. Grandmother of 25 including Shane Tyson, Garvin Barry, Dawnette Tyson Wickham, Anesta, Kanisha and Devona Tyson, Shanae Augustine, Irwin Tyson, Tracy Noel, and Shauna Edgar. Great-grandmother of 27. Sister of Odessa Pear, Augustine, Joseph and Stephen Tyson in the USA. Mother-in-law of Dennard Corion, Clifford Augustine, Kent Batiste, Calvin Prosper, Laura May, and Claudia Tyson. Sister-in-law of 6 including Teslin Pear, Catherine Tyson and Beverly Andrew. Many nieces and nephews in Grenada, the USA and the United Kingdom, including Lisa Tyson, Hulda Francois, Albert Tyson, and Arthur Francois. Many other relatives and friends including Lenora George Buckmeyer, Greta Joseph, Sandra Prosper and family, Dr. Carl Noel, Derek Edgar, Miss Sylvester and family, Miss Mirage, Miss Lazarus and family, Bethany Edwards, Myrel Noel, the Tyson family of Moya, Paradise and Seamoon, the Edgar, Andrew and Thorne families, and friends and neighbors of Paradise and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Sybil Dassey Edgar, née Tyson, also known as Dassey, of Paradise St. Andrew, will take place on Thursday, November 3rd at 12:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Leo RC Church, Paradise St. Andrew, and interment will be at the Family Cemetery, Paradise. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Fitzroy Ramdeen Sandy of Corncourt St. John died on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, at the age of 58. Left to mourn are his wife Jane Sandy, mother Merlin Sandy, children Karina Phillip, Casey, Kedar, and Kayla Sandy, and Carolyn Modeste, stepchildren Carlin, Jamie, and Keith Chetram. Sisters Miranda Joseph, also known as Lauren, Leah Batiste, and Emerin Sandy. Brothers Richardson, Gittins, Carl, Michael, Wade, and Leslie Sandy. Grandchildren Katie, Kadon, Kylie and Kaylee Phillip, and Kaylin Modeste. Son-in-law Shay Phillip. Nieces Caroline, Lenelyn, Jenelyn, and Amanda Joseph, Diane Toussaint, and Mindy Sandy. Nephews Keith Joseph, Sheldon, Dwayne Batiste, Nishon, Neemon, and Simeon Sandy. Other relatives and friends including the Sandy and Peters families of Beauséjour, the Thomas family of Concord, and members of the Concord Seventh-day Adventist Church, and family and friends of Concord and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Fitzroy Ramdeen Sandy of Concord St. John will take place on Thursday, November 3rd at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Concord Seventh-day Adventist Church, and interment will be at the Power Park Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Winston Modeste of Mount Royal, Carriacou, passed away on Wednesday, October 19, 2022, at the age of 67. He was the brother of Frederick, also known as Alfair, Wellington, Anthony, Innocent, Anselm, Frankie and Alwyn Modeste, Kennedy Dick and Errol Adams, Gloria, Elizabeth, Victoria Alexander, Godlin Noel, Yvonne and Yvette Moses. Uncle of many, too numerous to mention. Brother-in-law of Sarah, Virginia, Faithina, Menevia, Rachel, and Linus. Other relatives and friends including the Modeste families, Flora Modeste and family, Stalin and Misslin, Mackenzie and family, Thomas Lawrence and family, Victoria Montrose and family, Denian Collins and family, Joseph John, Dr. Tyrone Davis, the Boys by the Shop, the Moses, Adams, Andrew, Fleury, and Bedeau families, and neighbours of Mount Royal, Top Hill, and surrounding areas too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Winston Modeste of Mount Royal, Carriacou will take place on Friday, November 4th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Christ the King Anglican Church, Hillsborough, Carriacou, and interment will be at the Brunswick Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Everell Williams, also known as Everall, of Darbo St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 11th October 2022 in the USA, at the age of 62. He was the husband of Nicole Filbert Williams, son of Catherine Felix and Frank de Bellet, stepson of Walter Grenade, father of Igil Joseph in the USA, Tonell Griffith in Canada, Sheena Griffith in Trinidad, Carleen Bueta, Anika Joseph, also known as Keitha, Tumaika Ferguson, and Tamara Cave, also known as Tammy, all in Grenada. Stepfather of Raquel Ferguson in Grenada, and Kimani Filbert in the USA. Grandfather of 13, brother of Martin Felix, Cheryl Felix Joseph, Garth, Alistair and Alvin Felix, and Desmond de Bellet, all in the USA, Agatha, Denise, and Carol de Bellet in Grenada. Many in-laws, nieces, nephews, aunts, and uncles. Many other relatives and friends including Denise Griffith, Norisa Joseph Francis, Grace Griffith, Becky Ann Ferguson, former comrades of the People's Revolutionary Army, massed band colleagues, former masqueraders of Everall and Associates, Spice Revelers and Carib mass bands, the communities of Grove, Darbo, River Road, Four Roads, and neighbouring communities. The funeral of the late Everall Williams of Darbo St. George will take place on Saturday, November 5th in New Jersey, USA. Burial will be at the Fairmount Cemetery, New Jersey. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Abel John Dominic Henry, also known as Krill, of St. James St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, October 22nd, 2022, at the age of 81. He was the father of Dudley Powlett, Vaughn Dominic, Pamela, Leonard and Ecord Henry, Diana Otway, and Sujeth Roberts, stepfather of Brian Forrester, grandfather of Geddes, Lillian, Kelsey, Garon, Ken Antonio, Caitlin, Tamila, Logan, Naya, Diamond, Keandre, Michaela, Zane, Zara, and Tyler. brother of Erica Dominic, uncle of Corinne Simmons, Ennis and Albert Matthew, Jacinta, Roland and Thaddeus Dominic, Luther, Roland and Michelle Bernard, father-in-law of Michael Otway, Ken Antonio Roberts, and Kama Henry. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Evelyn Snack, Dominic Hopkins, Earl Long, Marjorie Collins, Jocelyn Harford, Adolphus John, the Charles and Edwards families of Tivoli, and friends and family of Mirabeau, Ashenden, Boulogne Agriculture Station, and loved ones and neighbours of St. James, Upper Capital, La Digue, Dunfermline and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Abel John Dominic Henry, also known as Krill, of St. James St. Andrew, will take place on Monday, November 7th at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Mount St. Irvan's RC Church, and interment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Paula Veronica Oliver of Winwood Carriacou passed away on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, at the age of 50. She was the mother of Hanisha, Sashon, Shanice, Raheem and Patricin Carriacou, and Camuel in the USA. Grandmother of Ishta, Sanya, Riley, Shakel, Zayden, Zaria and Ava in Carriacou, Nikilia, Camuel Jr., Melia, Kay Marie, and Kaylee in the USA. Sister of Laura, L'Oreal, Andrew, Randolph and Vincent in Carriacou, and John in the USA. Mother-in-law of Chantel Bethel and Regan McFarlane in Carriacou, and Kamala Pope in the USA. Sister-in-law of Yvette Oliver and Bernard Compton. Niece of Phyllis, Daphne, Vera and Verna in the UK, Zolita, Ezekiel and Dexter in Bequia, Olive in St. Vincent, Judith and Hervin in the USA, and Alan in Tortola. Aunt of 19, goddaughter of Marie George, Amy Ann, and Emily. Godmother of Jermaine MacDonald, also known as Tanti Germ. Close friend of many, including Esther Fleury, Deanna Darius, Ruth, Elvis, and Brother Pilgrim in Carriacou. Other relatives and friends including the Oliver families of Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and Grenada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the McLawrence families, the McQuilkin, Compton, and MacDonald families, and friends and neighbours of Winwood and surrounding areas, too numerous to mention. The funeral of the late Paula Veronica Oliver of Winwood Carriacou will take place on Tuesday, November 8th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's and Paul Roman Catholic Church, Winwood Carriacou, and interment will be at the McLawrence Family Cemetery, Winwood Carriacou. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Nikisha Bathsheba Joseph, also known as Nikki, of Concord St. John, a former employee of G4S Security Services, passed away on Tuesday, 18th October 2022 at the age of 35. She was the daughter of Shirley Ann Joseph Sandy and Lionel Pope, mother of Rihanna Joseph and Dylan Cador. Close and dear friend of Neron McIntosh, sister of Naisha Joseph Fentu, nurse Mindy Joseph, Kia Sandy, Nigel Joseph, Tyrone, Nimron and Jordan Sandy, aunt of Maya Ventu, Mina Felix, Angel and Ariel Joseph, Dwayne Felix, Nathan and Nashan Ventu, niece of Bernice, Claudeline, Hilary, Latoya, Cassandra, and Gwendale Joseph, Valerie Joseph, Michael in New York, Marvis Joseph in Miami, and Junior Blacks Joseph, grandniece of Glenn Andrews, Glennis Braffett, Agnes Thomas, referee George and Whitney Thomas, brother-in-law of Marlon Ventu and Dwayne Felix. Many cousins including Jada, Adele, Dalian, Chanel, Albert, and Talisha Joseph, Dan Marie Sandy, Nandi, Ashley, and Roger Thomas. Other relatives and friends including the Pope family, Shirley Hackett and family, the Redhead family of Concord, Dexton Cador and family, Dana McQueen, Delisa, DeAndre, Donnell Simon, Stephanie Graves, Sherry and Henry, Vanessa Welch, Dr. Ann Cyrus, members of Blue Stars Sports and Cultural Club, management and staff of G4S Security Services, friends and neighbors of Grand Roy and Concord. The funeral of the late Nikisha Bathsheba Joseph, also known as Nikki, of Concord St. John, will take place on Tuesday, 8th November 2022 at 12:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to Church of God of Prophecy rites, and interment will be at the St. George's Center Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacroix Brothers Funeral Home.
Michael Edwards, also known as Nasa, Curtis, and Haggie, of Latan St. David, passed away on Sunday, October 23, 2022, at the age of 69. He was the father of Charlton Charles, a member of the Royal Grenadier Police Force, Martin Charles, and Akil Charles, grandfather of 8, Martin, Markham, and Marcaden Klein, Michael, Marcaely, and Charlton Charles, Antoine Horsford, and Kamaya Coutain. Stepfather of 4, father-in-law of Elona Klein Charles, brother of Patrick Roberts, Andre Edwards, Augustine Caliste, Denise, Patsy, and Gail in Trinidad. Nephew of Shirley George, uncle of many including Kevin Thomas and Delon Edwards. Cousin of many including Jean, Joan, Denise, Ian, Jacinta, and Gail in England. Close friend of Jew James, Joan Charles, Roy Alexander, and Julius Fraser. Many relatives and friends in the surrounding areas of Latante, Pomrose, Mamacan, Apretut, Windsor Forest, Mardi Gras, and Crowshoe. The funeral of the late Michael Edwards, also known as Nasa, Curtis, and Haggie, of Latante St. David, will take place on Tuesday, November 8th at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Joseph's RC Church, Pomrose St. David, and interment will be at the Latante Family Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
Fitzroy Bernard Boson of Happy Hill, an ex-sergeant of police and former employee of the GIS, who resided at Bouchejou St. George, passed away on Thursday, 29th September 2022 at the age of 67. Left to cherish his memories, his mother, Elmina Boson, wife, Veronica, children, Stephanie, Karen, and Delroy, sisters, Ruby, Denise, and Brenda, brothers, Kellon and Winston in Trinidad, grandchildren, Tishon and Delia, aunt, Marinetta Haynes, brother-in-law, Crossford Haynes, sister-in-law, Aya, many nieces and nephews including Kelowna, KJ, Akimon, Keston, Kendall, Akim, Jason, and Jarvis. Other relatives and friends including Pastor Andrew from St. Vincent, Pastor Wisdom, Dr. Keith Mitchell, Glenroy, Joycelyn Thomas, Pearl, Lyneth, the Boson family of Happy Hill, Carriacou, and Sotez, the Woodruff family of Happy Hill and Grand Mall, the Amade, Charles, Paris, Deganis, and Williams family of Union, the boys on the block by the Blue Shop in Bouchejou, neighbors and friends of the surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Fitzroy Bernard Boson of Happy Hill St. George, who resided at Bouchejou St. George, will take place on Tuesday, 8th November 2022 at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Happy Hill Open Bible Church St. George and entombment at Top Fence Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
Cynthia Ventor, also known as Bridget of New Hampshire St. George, who resided in the USA, passed away on Friday, October 14, 2022, at the age of 75. She was the mother of Martin Ventoux in the USA, Vernessa Gilks, Krista Pascal Regis, and Tanisha Simon, grandmother of Chelsea Braffett, Mikhail Pascal, Zai Ventoux, Zavad Gilks, Andy Charles Jr., and Kian Thomas, sister of Anthony Ventoux, aunt of Pamela and Joy Ventoux, Denise Samuel, Laurel and Yolande Whiteman, Claudette Isaac, Gillian Lewis, Daphne MacDonald and Claudette, Annette, Linda, Gloria and Decima, Brian, Wayne, Ian, Billy, Wayne Whiteman, Jimmy Charles, Chelwyn Ventu, Jerry Charles, Enos MacDonald, Jimmy and Jerry, Dennis, Rodney, Matthew and Peter. Sister-in-law of Norma Ventu. Mother-in-law of Rickson Gilks, Philip Regis and Alicia Charles. Many cousins, other relatives and close friends including Maria Frank, Errol Johnson, Albert Frank, Mavis Redhead, Adina Protein, the Frank family of Vendham, New Hampshire and Boca, the Ventura family of Burt Grove, Grandroy and Beaulieu, the Ross and Monkeytoe families of New Hampshire, Myrtle Bridgman, Lorna Charles, Cecilia Alexander, Brendan James, Kevin Harris, Claire Superville, and friends and neighbors of New Hampshire. The funeral of the late Cynthia Venture, also known as Bridget, of New Hampshire St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Wednesday, November 9th at 2 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the New Hampshire Seventh-day Adventist Church, and interment will be at the New Hampshire Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Sister Gabrielle Mason, also known as Sister Gabs and Sita, member of the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny, of Munich St. Andrew, died on October 28, 2022, at the age of 80. Left to mourn Sisters of St. Joseph of Cluny, niece Valerie Horsford, nephews Dr. Byron Caliste and Elvin Caliste, many relatives and friends including Wayne Horsford, Ellis and Sean Horsford, Arissa, Dr. Zania Louison, Essence and Hope Caliste, Mildred Cruikshank, Nordica Noel, Helena Mason, Winifred Teague and Margaret McSween, the Mason, Lord, Noel, Edward and Peter's families, the principals, staff and students, past and present, of St. Joseph's Convent St. George's and Grenville and in the diaspora, friends and neighbors of Munich, Crowshoe and surrounding communities. There'll be tributes for the late Sister Gabrielle Mason and evening prayer at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception on Wednesday, November 9th at 6 p.m. The funeral Mass for the late Sister Gabrielle Mason will be celebrated at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, Church Street, St. George's on Thursday, November 10th at 10 a.m., followed by entombment at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements have been entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
Margaret Christopher, also known as Margaret Lewis, and Miss Margaret of Grand Bras, who resided at Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, 29th October 2022 at the age of 92. The funeral arrangements for the late Margaret Christopher, also known as Margaret Lewis, and Miss Margaret of Grand Bras, who resided at Canal Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Police Constable 363 Daniel Joel James of Monfendu St. Patrick, a member of the Royal Grenadier Police Force attached to the Fire Department, passed away on Monday, 24th October 2022 at the age of 52. Funeral arrangements for the late PC 363 Daniel Joel James of Monfendu St. Patrick will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Christopher Belgrave, also known as Sabu and Pops of Caliste St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 1st November 2022 at the age of 79. Funeral arrangements for the late Christopher Belgrave, also known as Sabu and Pops of Caliste St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
Judy Pear, also known as Auntie Judy of Pearl St. Andrew, passed away on Thursday, October 27, 2022 in the USA, at the age of 55. The funeral arrangements for the late Judy Pear, also known as Auntie Judy of Pearl St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Garvey Wilson of Bellevue St. David, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, passed away at the age of 34. The funeral arrangements for the late Garvey Wilson of Bellevue, St. David, who resided at New Hampshire, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Everett Cutane of Cherry Hill, St. George, a retired laundry superintendent at the government's laundry, Darbo, St. George, and member of the Catholic Men's League of St. George's, passed away on Wednesday, October 26, 2022, at the age of 88. The funeral arrangements for the late Everett Cutane of Cherry Hill, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Anselm John, also known as Oak, and Pempem of Lower Capital, Birchgrove, St. Andrew, died on Sunday, October 23, 2022, at the age of 64. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph Anselm John, also known as Oak, and Pempem of Lower Capital, Birchgrove, St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Anastasia Mitchell Alexander, also known as Unida and Miss Anne, of River Sally, St. Patrick, who resided at Molinaire, St. George, passed away on Wednesday, October 26, 2022. The funeral arrangements for the late Anastasia Mitchell Alexander, also known as Unida and Miss Anne, of River Sally, St. Patrick, who resided at Molinaire, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Stephanie Kate Seals of H.A. Blair Street, St. George's, died on Monday, October 24, 2022, at the age of 87. The funeral arrangements for the late Stephanie Kate Seals of H.A. Blair Street, St. George's, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Alexander, also known as Rampel, of Beausejour, St. George, who resided at Fontenoy, died on Wednesday, October 26, 2022, at the age of 72. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph Alexander, also known as Rampel, of Beausejour, St. George, who resided at Fontenoy, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. In loving memory of the late beloved son, brother, employee and friend, Shondell Kellon Harford, also known as Loverboy, Delop and Dell, of St. Cloud, St. Andrew, who resided at Grand Bras, St. Andrew, and passed away on Wednesday, November 3, 2021, at the age of 22. From sunrise to sunset, you are forever in our hearts. There is not a day, hour, minute or second that we don't remember your smile, warm words of encouragement, and even your corrections. Shondell, oh, how words cannot express the emptiness that is left in our hearts, since you left without saying goodbye. We know for sure it's God's perfect will, and someday our spirit will connect for eternity. Until then, we will continue to cherish every moment that we got to spend with you. Your dad, mom, sister, brothers, extended family, friends, and fellow co-workers say continue to sleep in peaceful rest. The Harford family and management of Sammy's Ready Mix. Funeral arrangements were entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Death and dying are the inevitable events and realities of life. The passing of a friend or loved one often brings with it the feelings of sadness, grief, and pain. There is always the period of sorrow and mourning for those who experience such loss. Brothers and sisters, particularly in this time and season of how you feel and what you may be thinking as a result of the passing of your loved one, there is a source and means of comfort that you can tap into. That source and means of comfort is God and His Word that speaks specifically and directly to our situation. Hear the word to you today. He says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." What I believe he is saying through this verse to you and everyone that is now experiencing some measure of grief or sorrow, and what I also believe is implied in that which he says, are the following. Mourning is an understandable, normal, and real expression of your emotions. Mourning presents the opportunity for us to experience the comfort of family, friends, and loved ones. Mourning identifies us with each other in our humanity and morality. Mourning will not last forever. It is for a particular season and reason. Mourning connects us with the ultimate source and means of comfort that is always available to us, God, our Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ. And so today, we look to the Lord in prayer, Him who is able to comfort us with the comfort that we need in times like these. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God of comfort, we pray even now for those who mourn and are in need of your comfort. May your love embrace them. May your grace afford them the strength for each day and hope for tomorrow. May you inspire and motivate them to stand upon the promises of your word. And may your Spirit lead and direct them to the ultimate source and means of comfort which can be found in you and the promises of your word. This prayer we offer through Jesus Christ our Lord.